I'm Brett Baer in for Bill O'Reilly, and in the Unresolved Problems segment tonight, Hillary Clinton and what, if anything, she remembers about her private email server. In August, a federal judge ordered Mrs. Clinton to submit written answers under oath about the private server she used while Secretary of State. On Thursday, her lawyers filed those answers, which Clinton signed under, quote, penalty of perjury, unquote. Joining now is Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch, a group that filed the lawsuit to get Clinton's answers. Tom is also the author of the book Clean House. So, Tom, what's the headline?
Well, her remarkable lapses of memory. We only gave her 25 questions that were relatively simple and straightforward. And I think 20 times she said, I don't recall. I do not recall why the email system was set up to begin with. I don't recall if I ordered the destruction of records. I don't recall if I had any discussions about people asking for Clinton emails under the Freedom of Information Act. I don't recall if there were warnings about security. In fact, at one point, she didn't even want to answer any questions about whether she was warned specifically about her BlackBerry use, because it was not secure. And we now know she was warned and she understood the warning, yet she continued to use the BlackBerry anyway. But remarkable lapses of memory about pretty much everything related to the Clinton email issue, and I don't think it's terribly credible. And it shows that she doesn't want to disclose what she does recall about the email issue.
There are some lawmakers on Capitol Hill who said in her testimony that she essentially lied, and they can prove that, but they have not brought anything forward, obviously, with the FBI. Is there anything in these documents, besides the I don't recall, that suggests she didn't tell the truth in these answers?
Well, that's why you have lawyers, to make sure that when you present information like this, it's hard to make a case for perjury or misleading the court. But I think it's there in the sense that when you say I don't recall something, and there are a bunch of documents and emails showing that, hey, you were involved in this, you should recall it, and it's not credible that you don't recall it. The judge may not say, hey, you go to jail or you're in contempt of court, but when deciding what finally to do about it, they may look at Mrs. Clinton's testimony here and find her allegation that I don't remember anything not to be credible.
Quickly, where does this go from here?
We're going to have to figure out what to do with these answers. We still have a pending request to depose her with another federal court judge. We may fight to get the answers from her that she refused to give us in this set of interrogatories or questions. And, of course, we still have new Clinton emails coming to us almost weekly.
Well, you've been shaking the tree better than people on Capitol Hill and getting things out. Tom Fitton, thank you. Joining us now to respond, Julian Epstein, a Democratic strategist. Julian, your thoughts?
Well, I think your most important question was, where does this go from here? The Judicial Watch organization has been pursuing the Clinton for 25 years, and they've pretty much turned up nothing during the course of that 25 years. James Comey, who was the Republican head of the FBI, said there is essentially no legal case whatsoever here in terms of at least a criminal case. And if any law students are watching, I mean, they should look at these interrogatories. These are probably the most inartful interrogatories that have ever been written. And they ask things like, do you remember conversations that were occurring 3 levels down from you, Secretary Clinton, about possible conflicts with the federal record-keeping laws or possible dangers, endangerment in terms of cybersecurity and hacking? And her answers were, no, to the best of my recollection, I don't remember these conversations. She wouldn't normally remember them. She wouldn't normally be participating in any of those conversations.
But, you know, we're looking at some of these WikiLeaks emails and some of the conversations after a subpoena has been issued by Trey Gowdy to protect these emails, to protect the server. And they are communicating with staff to say, what should we hand over, what shouldn't we hand over, and is the server really under this subpoena? I mean, doesn't that raise some questions?
That's an entirely different question from the subject you're talking about with Tom, which is the inartful questions that were asked and the responses from our attorneys. In terms of
but they asked,
the question you were just talking about with Harry,
did you order the destruction?
Yes, let me respond to that. So if a congressional committee, and I used to be staff director of that congressional committee, the Government Reform Committee, if a congressional committee subpoenas a document from Secretary Clinton, the question John Podesta would normally ask Cheryl Mills of the State Department is, should we hold these back? There would be 2 reasons legally that they would legally be entitled to hold them back. One is if they were subject to executive privilege. And a conversation between Secretary Clinton and President Obama would, by its very definition, be subject to executive privilege, not something that would normally be turned over to Congressional committee. Or if they were personal emails that had nothing to do with her official business, then they would not also be subject to the subpoena. So there are many legitimate reasons that fall outside the subpoena.
We know that work emails were were erased in that server. We know that. The FBI told us that. And the fact that she couldn't remember whether she ordered the destruction of that server or not is kind of interesting.
I think what she said in the response, if you read it closely, was, and this is real clear contextually, is that her attorneys and her legal team went through and made their best determination as to what were official records and therefore needed to be maintained under federal record-keeping laws and what were personal. And the ones that her legal team determined to be personal were the ones that were not preserved, and that's consistent with the law. Comey had access to the emails you're referring to, and he still came up with the same conclusion, that there was no violation of law here.
Yeah, but he also said there were work emails and there were classified emails on that server. Julian, thank you very much.